So you've decided you want to have an FM modulator connected to your Mr. Christmas, and it doesn't seem like it'll be that hard because you've seen a couple of YouTube videos. And so I was going to share my experiences. I ran into a couple issues, and hopefully you guys will find this useful. I'm definitely by no means an expert, but I did get it to work, and I did do something a little different than others, only out of necessity because I ended up wrecking my board. But I ended up having a line level output instead of just having it controlled and snipping the speaker wires. So in theory, you could probably have both hooked up at the same time. You'll see in the video, I'll explain what happened with mine. The FM modulator I'm using, I've only had it for a couple of days. Bought it off Amazon. It was $30. I like to have an antenna. It's USB powered, so pretty simple. And so next screen you'll see is actually inside the machine. So your first challenge of modifying your Mr. Christmas to have auxiliary sound is going to be getting into Mr. Christmas. They have these nice triangle anti-tamper screws, and you can order screwdrivers for this on Amazon. What you don't want to do is go and buy bits to put on your existing screwdriver, because it's not going to fit down inside. The bit holder is going to be too big to get in there. I used an Allen key. This Allen key is 4 1/4 inches long. I watched another video where you can actually use a 1/16 Allen key. Will actually fit in the triangle pretty good, but definitely not perfect. So I bought a little bigger one. I'm not sure if this is a 3/32 or what exact size this is, but it doesn't really matter, because what I did is I filed it down, I don't know if you can get a view of it here, into a triangle. So I put it in my vise and just filed 3 sides of it until it made a triangle. And the screws that hold the stake holder that are accessible in the back are the same head size as the ones that are inside. So it's just a matter of trial and error until you get something fashioned that'll work properly. But definitely key points to remember. Has to be long enough to get down in there. It's probably a good 3 inches long, and you still need room to be able to turn it. And you're not going to be able to just, well, I couldn't find one that you could just buy in the stores. So I fashioned this. You can buy a kit for 20 bucks off Amazon, but I was too impatient to wait, so I sacrificed a $1 Allen key. All right, so once we're inside Mr. Christmas, typically what others have done, and I try this myself, is snip the wires, the yellow and white wires coming off the speaker, and solder in a connection for your 1/8 or 3.5 stereo jack. And you can do that. I did that. It worked fine. The signal's very loud. You have to keep it on the very low setting so you don't blow out your FM modulator. But when I did that, I didn't do a very good job of tucking my wires in properly. And when I actually ended up crushing and arcing out the 2 wires, which then basically killed all the sound. And I thought I had screwed my board pretty good and was pretty upset with myself. But when I started looking, I decided that there probably should be some line level or another source of sound other than just that amplified sound coming off of the volume control. And when I actually got looking at the board, I seen that there's a jumper here, I don't know if you can quite see it, where it says volume. And it's these 3 wires here, red, green, and blue. So I knew that must have something to do with the volume. And when I looked, it looked like those 3 wires, if you can see down in there, there's a couple leads feeding it from the actual board. So when I turned the board over and looked at the actual circuitry of it, I seen that, yeah, indeed, those 2 leads were connected to those 3 wires that run to the volume or volume control. So I thought, well, I'm going to put a couple wires on there and just test it out to see. And so I cut a piece of headphone wire and put it on there, and sure enough, I got a real low or line level sound out of those 2. So I decided to hook my my stereo cable right to there and run that into my FM modulator. So the other thing that is important, I've seen in other videos and people, or comments in the other videos that people were asking, is when you cut your stereo wire apart, which leads do you use? Now, this particular one is in fact for a stereo. So it has a tip, a sleeve, and a ring, are the 3 different spots. And each one of those are hooked to one of these wires. Now, it doesn't seem that there's any commonness with the colors of the wiring or which tip they go to. So you might have to get an ohm meter and just do a test. What is common is that this top part here is always a common or ground. And the other 2 or 3, depending on what you have, will be your left and right, and in some cases a microphone if you have a one with a couple rings in it. So on mine, the white wire was the common, and since it's not left and right, it's only mono, I put both the left and right to that connection. My FM modulator does have a stereo connection, and so that's why I wanted to have sound going to both channels, the left and the right. So flip Mr. Christmas on, and hopefully you can hear in the background it's blasting away on my stereo through the FM modulator. One other note while we're looking at the FM modulator, and it might be different for different FM modulators, but mine would get hung up on the odd song at a certain note and would actually I don't know, almost shut down the Mr. Christmas or pause it out. Not only the sound but also the lights would stop. And when I would plug the stereo jack directly into the radio, it wouldn't do it. And when I had a set of headphones on, it wouldn't do it. It was only acting that way on my FM modulator. So I decided I'd just put a little more draw or resistance into it. And I just used a splitter, and I've had no issues since I've done that. So if anybody else runs into that problem where it gets hung up, try adding some more line in. And I should mention as well, it did that to me when I had it hooked up to these speaker wires as well. Not just on the line level solder job I did in the back. It was doing that on this side as well. So again, I didn't read anybody else's comments on that. So maybe it was just this FM modulator. I'm not sure. So anyway, I'll put the thing back together and we'll go from there.